Il faut réactiver votre micro, Christian.
J'entends toujours pas. Hein.
Allez-y, Christian, c'est bon.
Hello, everyone. In the name of the ministry, La Vérité qui scelle, the truth that seals. We would like to give you a special welcome and a happy Sabbath to this camp meeting. We would like to express our gratitude to our God. A special thanks to the ministry Le Grand Cri, the Loud Cry. For its precious collaboration. We would like to thank all the countries present for your interest in this message. We invite you to listen to a song presented by Dolly and David. And then we will meet again for the second presentation of Elder Tess. So Dolly and David, it's up to you.
Bonjour à tous. Le chant que nous allons chanter est le numéro 92.
So we would like to interpret the song 92.
Il nous rappelle que Dieu, dans son amour,
And this song shows us that God, in His love,
nous éclaire sur le chemin que nous parcourons.
Light us in the path that we take.
Comme un phare qui montre le chemin.
Like something that shows us the path to go.
Aux marins perdus sur la mer.
When the people in the sea are lost.
Voilà. Comme un phare sur la plage, perçant l'ombre de la nuit, l'amour de Dieu dans l'orage cherche l'homme et le conduit. Ô Sauveur, que ta lumière resplendisse sur les flots et vers le ciel qu'elle éclaire et sauve les matelots. Nulle étoile n'étincelle pour vous guider aux nochers qui gardera la nacelle des écueils et des rochers. Ô Sauveur, que ta lumière resplendisse sur les flots et que par moi l'éclair rayonne aux yeux des marins perdus. Ô Sauveur, que ta lumière resplendisse sur les flots et vers le ciel qu'elle éclaire et sauve les matelots. Ô Sauveur, que ta lumière resplendisse sur les flots et vers le ciel qu'elle éclaire et sauve les matelots et sauve les matelots. Bon sabbat à tous.
Elder Tess, you can begin now.
Can you hear me okay? We're all good?
Yeah, I can hear you. Elder Tess, can you hear us?
Can hear you.
Okay, great.
Okay. If you kneel with me, we'll begin with a silent prayer. Amen. Happy Sabbath. I only know Feliz Sabado. Apologies to the French. I will learn. I can't say how nice it is to see and hear my friends. For me, it's this that keeps me going. It really is delightful. And we're recording now, so I won't start naming you. Yesterday, we looked at Acts 27. I'm trying to answer some questions that seem disconnected. But I tend to suggest it's all connected. Acts 27 is one of my favorite lines. A place not far from where I used to live, it's a beautiful place by the ocean called Apollo Bay. And there's this mountain you could climb, really a hill. We'd walk to the top of this hill. And for all those flat earth theorists out there, you could look out over the sea and observe the curvature of the earth. From horizon to horizon. That's what the ship of Alexandria is for us. To stand right back and look at the horizons of modern Israel. $17.98 in one direction, Second Advent in the other. And as you would expect, we lose some fine details. When you're standing back at such a distance. But it gives us a unique perspective. So in reviewing the Lion of Alexandria, that ship that protects the people, I wanted to complete the last two dispensations. Particularly that which relates to the close of probation to the Second Advent. As Paul is picked up by this second ship of Alexandria, the Castor and Pollux. They land at Syracuse and Rhegium. Finally, coming to the destination of all the ships of Alexandria at Puteoli. The second reason I wanted to look at this line is to consider shipwreck. Why is it here that the institution is destroyed? Now, in this history from horizon to horizon, we have three other storylines. That tell us what happens with the papacy, Protestantism, and modern Israel. And I'm going to combine the two. The line of Alexandria with the story of Protestantism. Also, we can study and understand this waymark. So we asked, why is Adventism shipwrecked here? And we went back to our favorite book, The Great Controversy. Where Ellen White tells us the authority of the United States would be used to enforce an observance and this observance in itself is an act of homage to the papacy. So we use that to go back to our document, how the Constitution became Christian. Which is discussing this story of Protestantism. And the three attempts by Protestantism to pay homage to the papacy. First, in the history of 1863 to 1900. Then in the late 1940s and through the 1950s. And finally, from 1979 to today. So I'm going to start with that first history. That first history is 1863 When I say 1900, I know I'm being vague. I'm not trying to give some specific end date. But I'm covering the history well after 1888. Now we looked at our document. Even just in the introduction, on page 263, it will tell you why that movement within Protestantism began. And that's because of one segment of Protestant society felt threatened. And who did they feel threatened by? Page 263 will tell you. Free thinkers. This was the growing influence partly of Charles Darwin. Jews. Seventh-day Adventists. Catholics. Now this is where the document starts to poke you in the eye. Because it's Catholics as a threat that I want to highlight. What is the relationship between the papacy and Protestantism in 1863 to 1900? Enmity? Do you really believe that? I'm asking everyone. If you do, we're in a good place. The problem is, I think some of you don't believe that. I think some of you still think that Protestantism and Catholicism were friends in 1888. And that's why when people see Pope Francis today, and Donald Trump, and they don't look like friends, people have a problem. Someone, not me, should go into the history of the nativist movement and do a presentation on it. The persecution of Irish Catholics, especially in 1844. Is there a friendship between Catholicism and Protestantism in the history of 1888? And every version of history will tell you no. So why are we expecting one today? I want to screen share for a moment, if you'll let me. and look at a couple of images. The first we'll look at were all by Thomas Nast. He pioneered political cartoons in America. He was born in 1840. And he died in 1902. I'll show you a couple of his political cartoons from that time period. Remember, we are covering the time period from 1863 to around 1900. This is what he is representing. October 1, 1870. So we are within that time frame. This is a representation of the Pope of Rome. Surrounded by his men and his army. Gleefully pointing across the Atlantic towards the United States. It's titled The Promised Land as Seen from the Dome of St. Peter's in Rome. So what's the fear in Protestant America? When you have this Catholic threat. They believe there is a legitimate conspiracy. From the Vatican itself to take over Protestant America. This was not the fear of the Millerites, this is the fear of the Protestants. I'll share another photo. This one is from the year after, in 1871. It shows the connection between those who come to the United States instead of integrating into the United States. They were never to be considered true Americans. Because they are tied to the apron strings of the Pope of Rome. Again, the fear of a conspiracy. This one is particularly famous. If I can find it. I'm missing one. Just see if I can find that. Here it is. This is 1875. How do I find this then? Screen share. Fixed. This one is 1875. If you look at the Capitol in the background, it's been overtaken by the Catholic Church. It says political church. Towards the right, it says the political Roman Catholic Church. And then it shows bishops as alligators coming for America's school children. And their fear here is about what would be taught in America's public schools. Just look for another. Similarly, again with the idea of a conspiracy. This is all political cartoons in that history. Again, the threat of an infiltrating Roman Catholicism. With a secret ear into both political parties. Hiding under the curtain of religion. With a deep-set conspiracy to infiltrate American politics. And ruling America. Again, Rome coming for America's school system. This is the Catholic threat that Protestants are facing in 1888. Now, they're not doing political cartoons about Adventism. So as they give homage to the papacy, through the Blair Bill, who do they hate more? Catholics or Seventh-day Adventists? It was not us. And if you think this ended quickly, you should come to the cartoons of the 1920s. This is a cartoon. Thomas Nast is dead by now. But using the Holy Bible, a true American Protestant has taken down the Catholic threat. Now you'll notice something especially unique about this true American Protestant. What's this crusader wearing? Now, when it comes to the 1920s, the true Protestant defenders against Catholicism were the Ku Klux Klan. And that is represented by many of the political photos of that time. It's my final example. So this extended for a long period of American history. Here, the evil demonic hand of Rome reaching out for the United States. About to be beaten down by the Klansmen. So that's extending out of our history. And heading into 1910, 20, 30. I just wanted to illustrate it didn't end in the 20th century, 19th century. But it's certainly in full force in 1888. And what strikes fear in the heart of many a Protestant is not Adventism, it's the conspiracy theory of a deliberately infiltrating Rome. And I'm going to say it again. Where does the threat come from in America? Protestantism. So why do Adventists think like Protestants? Walter Weipp has invented nothing new. He's just taken all of the Protestant conspiracy theories and make them look like they're uniquely Adventist, and they're not. So the threat was freethinkers, Jews, Adventists, Catholics. So while they hate Catholics, how can they then pay homage to Catholicism? In 2018, during that first series in Arkansas, we went to 1893 and the World Fair. as Protestants tried to enforce Sunday keeping at that World Fair. Seventh-day Adventists started a new publication a new association called the International Religious Liberty Association. They wrote a tract against that enforcement of Sunday. And one of those tracts ended up in the hands of a Catholic in Baltimore. And what the Catholic Church in Baltimore did is publish 4 editorials that appeared in the Catholic Mirror, their publication, on September 2, 9, 16, and 23. I'm not going to read through those 4 editorials. They're all in your pioneer writings. If you were to go to 1893, RCPKS, .22, you will find written out the 4 editorials in full. But this is, you can read them. I'm going to tell you what the Catholic Church is saying to Protestantism. Through these 4 editorials, the Catholic Church proves that the Sabbath was never changed to Sunday in the New Testament. That Sunday keeping is purely an institution of the Roman Catholic Church. And then Catholicism looks to Protestantism and they openly mock them. They say, you hate us. You're threatened by us. In fact, you're desperately trying to change your constitution to show that no Catholic can be a true American. But every time you keep Sunday with no biblical evidence you can do so, you honor us. So with mockery, if you read not necessarily in the words, but in the tone of those articles, The Catholic Church was saying to Protestantism, thank you for your homage. Now, isn't that ironic? I'll use a worldly story. I'll assume you're all good Adventists. So if I was to say the name Julio Iglesias, none of you will know who I'm talking about. He's supposed to be one of the greatest Latin singer of all time. Now, what made Julio Iglesias very upset? He had a son, and his son has a really good voice. And the son began to sing. Enrique Iglesias. Now, what's the relationship between the father and the son? If I can be brutal, they hate each other. So the son hates his father. But where did the voice of the son come from? It's inherited. It's in his blood. So Enrique Iglesias he stands up to sing. He hates his father. Does he have any desire to pay homage to his father? None. But every time he opens his mouth, against his will, he's paying homage. Because he's showing where he came from. They don't have to be friends. Ellen White is saying it's in the act that the homage lays. You can have a woman who's a supermodel. She has a daughter that hates her famous mother. But the daughter is beautiful. So every time the daughter stands up and models, regardless of the hatred she holds for her mother, she pays homage. Because as Julio can say to Enrique, hate me all you like, your voice came from me. And the mother says to the daughter, hate me all you like, your appearance came from me. And in 1893, Catholicism said to Protestantism, hate the mother all you like. Your Sunday keeping came from me. That is homage. You need find no non-existent deep state conspiracy. You could read further down in the Great Controversy. .446.1. Whoever knowingly keeps Sunday gives supreme honor and shows their mark of allegiance to the Pope of Rome. 448.3. This one's good. Romanists declare, so the Catholic Church declares that the observance of Sunday by the Protestants is a homage they pay to Catholicism in spite of themselves. So in spite of themselves, regardless of what they want to do. The very act is a homage. So the threat. Free thinkers. Control them through a Sunday law, through blasphemy laws, Jews, Sunday laws, Adventists, Sunday laws. None of that is enough for Catholicism. You have to amend the Constitution to state it's a Protestant nation. I want to move on to the second history now. We have a lot to get through with the second history. But to remember the key points. Hated by Protestantism. Persecuted and killed during the nativist riots. Protestantism feared the infiltration of Jesuits in the Catholic Church. Determined to protect themselves from Catholicism by declaring it to be a Protestant nation. But despite themselves were paying homage. despite what they willed to do, despite their hatred. Second history, mid-20th century Judeo-Christian nationalism. Judeo-Christian nationalism. What's the threat? I want to quote quite extensively from the book The Evangelicals. I'll say 1950s, but it really goes back to at least the late 1940s. Many of you now have access to that book, The Evangelicals. I'd like to recommend especially chapters 5 to 7. It covers much of this history. Through the early 20th century, there was war in Protestant churches. We've spoken of it before. It's known as the fundamentalist modernist controversy. And many people thought that the modernists had won and fundamentalism had died. It seemed that fundamentalism had lost that fight. Had been humiliated. But fundamentalism lived on. It's remarkably resilient. Particularly through Bible institutes such as the Moody Bible Institute. And conservative colleges such as Wheaton College and Bob Jones University. Two and a half decades after the humiliation of fundamentalism, began to resurrect in the person of a young fundamentalist known as Billy Graham. Now, through those 2.5 decades, (1920s, 30s, 40s), fundamentalism had been seen as more and more extreme. If you're translating and you go into the document I sent you of the quotes, I'll just make sure, if we can all make sure we're at the same page, so when I start reading, you have it. The Evangelicals by Francis Fitzgerald is the highlighted title. A couple of sentences into the second paragraph. Does everyone have it? If you have the book, you can just start typing the words I read into the search engine. It'll take you to the paragraphs. Throughout the 1920s, Frank Norris maintained that the Catholics were attempting to take over the government and overturn the Constitution. So there's still the fear of Catholicism. If that happened, he wrote, they would behead every Protestant preacher and disembowel every Protestant mother. They would burn to ashes every Protestant church and dynamite every Protestant school. Next paragraph. In the early 1930s, a number of other leaders, among them Arno Gabelin, James M. Gray, William B. Riley, and Gerald Winrod, embraced the notorious forgery, the Protocols of the Elders of Zion, and integrated it into their end times scenarios, uncomfortably as it sat with their prophetic Zionism. These were all leading fundamentalists of that time period. According to Riley, a Jewish communist currently plotting to establish a one-world government to impose a uniform atheistic religion on the enslaved populations of the world. This is just an early Walter Weiss. He has no new message. But whatever he would have conservative Protestantism believe, it is not a message he's taken from the Great Controversy. Riley and Winrod, who led the Defenders of the Christian Faith, maintained that apostate Jews were already taking over American finances, courts, and newspapers, and as Riley put it, making ready to filch the land of all its gold, take over its cattle and its farms, and possess themselves of all its factories, arts, and industries. So this is the history of the Great Depression. In comes Franklin D. Roosevelt. And Roosevelt is a socialist because he brings in the New Deal. As a response to the Great Depression. So those and other fundamentalist leaders charged that the New Deal was preparing the way for the Antichrist and pointed to the Blue Eagle insignia of the National Recovery Administration as the mark of the beast. So you know that they're evil because there's this blue eagle and they're telling you in secret. The methodology of Walter Weiss. The Roosevelt administration, Riley wrote, was clearly a Jewish-controlled regime. Believed that Eleanor was a socialist. And the administration was composed of secret Stalinists and communist sympathizers. Some of these fundamentalist leaders became Nazi sympathizers. Hitler, Riley wrote, has snatched his country from the very jaws of atheistic communism with help from on high. So fundamentalism was not doing very well. Finally, in the late 1940s, a revivalist is going to change that story. Billy Graham is going to change the idea of Christian that has now become tainted through these fundamentalists and now it will go from Christian to Judeo-Christian. And the word fundamentalist so Christian to Judeo-Christian. To separate themselves from fascism. And fundamentalist will get changed to evangelical. So like a business that goes bankrupt, they reinvent themselves. I believe we're out of time. Tomorrow we want to complete the history of the 1950s. Give some history of Billy Graham. So we'll pick up from here tomorrow. I'll briefly revise. We want to know how the papacy is given homage at the Sunday law. In over 126 years, Adventism has had kneaded into its message the worldview, the conspiracy theories of Protestantism. The fear of a secret Catholic plot. Catholic infiltration. Secret plans for a one world government. Jews controlling the banking system. Your ability to see all of this because of some of the insignia and signs that they show you. Socialism as Satanism. Capitalism as purity. All of these are Protestant ideas that have infiltrated Adventism. If you read the Great Controversy carefully, she will tell you that they were paying homage in 1888 against their will. This document does not conflict with the Great Controversy. When it identifies Catholicism as one of the greatest threats Protestantism faced in their own mind. And everything Protestantism was attempting to do was not to pay homage, but to put their foot on the neck of that frightening Catholic infiltration. If we understand that history correctly, we won't take those conspiracy theories, that incorrect worldview, to the Sunday law in our time. And look for friendship between Francis and the Republican Party. Tomorrow we'll look at Billy Graham. If you kneel with me, we'll close in prayer. Dear Lord, thank you for your Sabbath day. But thank you for all that sets your people apart. Thank you for restoration. Thank you for equality. Thank you for parable teaching that takes us away from fearful conspiracies. And gives us confidence in what is truth. I pray, Lord, that we'll truly consider how deep some of this thinking runs in us. Help us to not mix truth and error in today's message. May we make it pure. We pray in Jesus' name. Amen. Thank you and happy Sabbath.
Merci et bon sabbat.
Nous remercions l'ancien Tess pour cette présentation.
So we want to thank Elder Tess for this presentation.
Dans l'immédiat, nous allons fermer cette session.
So right now we're going to close the session.
Et nous nous retrouverons dans un court instant
And we're going to come back shortly
pour une étude avec l'ancien Paimender.
for a follow-up study with Elder Peminder.
Merci.
Thank you.